All right, guys, welcome back to the First Team Fantasy Podcast. Today, we're going to take you guys through the rest of those Sunday games and the Monday night game. And we're going to start off with the injury report this time. We got a lot to go over, so tune in. And we're going to start with the questionable guys. We got, starting off, Derek Carr, still with that shoulder. Zay Jones with his knee. Jamal Agnew, another Jacksonville wide receiver that you're not really looking at, but he is questionable with the quad. Jonathan Taylor was on there with an ankle, but they removed him, so he should be good to go. Granted, it's against the Tennessee run defense, so I'd keep that in mind. Odell is questionable with a hamstring. He said that he's going to play. Even if he does, not really someone I'm looking to start this week. John Metchie with an illness, apparently. First, I'm really hearing about that, but again, another receiver I wasn't really looking to start. However, Josh Reynolds is questionable with the groin, and Amon Ra and Jahmyr Gibbs are both looking like they're going to miss this game. So with that, I'd really be watching the health of Josh Reynolds. If he is also unable to go, Khalif Raymond would probably be the next guy up in that receiver room. Yes, Jameson Williams is there, but this is his first game back, and he has not had too much experience playing on this professional level. Like I said, Jahmyr Gibbs, he was questionable. They just downgraded him to doubtful. So I'm not thinking he's going to be playing. It's going to be a big David Montgomery week, regardless of who else is out there. Saquon Barkley, still questionable with that ankle. He himself said he would like to play, but we've heard players say that before and, again, not go on to play. So something to monitor. Daniel Bellinger, the other tight end on the Giants, is questionable with a knee, meaning even more Darren Waller, I guess. Another wide receiver on the Eagles, kind of their punt returner, Britian Covey, had a concussion. Cooper Kupp is questionable, but expected to play with a hamstring injury. Sean McVay himself said he was just on the injury report, listed as questionable, but he expects him to play, so I'd look forward to that. Javonte Williams, on the other hand, practiced yesterday, still listed as questionable with that quad. If he's unable to go, the guy I like is McLaughlin, however you do say that, but him over Samaje Perine. We've got Davante Adams, still questionable with that shoulder, although he did practice today, which is something that we like to see. Their matchup is on Monday, so something that you have to continue to monitor. Christian Watson, another Christian Watson on the injury report, questionable with the hamstring. And Luke Musgrave on that same team, still dealing with that concussion, also questionable. With the game being on Monday, there are two guys that might end up playing. Just monitor that. And we're going to finish this off with Rhamondre with his thigh, Aaron Jones with his hamstring, Justice Hill with the foot and hamstring. I guess he picked up a hamstring injury to go along with the foot injury. Either way, it's looking like the Gus show there.
Yeah.
And Keaton Mitchell, who they took off the IR, is obviously questionable still with the shoulder. Whether or not he'll play, I don't know. But like I said, it's the Gus Bus show right now in Baltimore. The guys who are doubtful, like I mentioned, Amon Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, I'd count on them not to play. And also James Mitchell, tight end for the Lions, meaning, hey, even more Sam Laporta.
Yeah.
The guys who have been already ruled out, Treylon Burks, missing another week. Pat Freiermuth, we already kind of knew this, but he will be out. T. Higgins, they did announce today that he will be missing this game. Some of us expected that, but it is for sure now. And then the last two guys, Peyton Hendershot, tight end on the Cowboys, so probably more Jake Ferguson. And Elijah Mitchell will be out, meaning a lot of Christian McCaffrey, and Jordan Mason will probably be the guy to spell him. And that's, all we got for the injury report so far. If anything else pops up, we'll add it to our Instagram or our Twitter, so check that out.
Yeah, and that'll segue us to our first afternoon game, which is the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Rams. This is an interesting game, the return of Cooper Kupp. The Eagles are favored by 4 points on the road, which is really 7 points. The over-under is 50.5, so they expect it to be a bit of a high-powered game, and I would agree with that, especially with these offenses. On the Eagles side of the ball, they're another team where you have your definitive starters. You're rolling Jalen Hurts, you're rolling DeAndre Swift, you're rolling A.J. Brown. Devonta Smith, I have as my must-sit for this week, but again, you're rolling him if he's in the lineup. Dallas Goedert, I like him in this matchup. I mean, I like him in this matchup, but he's one that I am heavily monitoring. He seems like has a couple games where he's involved and then other games where he's not. It just depends the game script of this game. For whatever reason, if the Eagles go up a lot early, which is a possibility, then we wouldn't, possibly see too much Godare, but I like the Godare start this week. I'm not against it.
I mean, he's all right. If you're still holding on to him, you might as well throw him in there. But as far as him, I like Logan Thomas is showing that he's a more solid option. I'm like even Cole Kmet, and another guy that I might look at honestly this week to possibly replace Dallas Goedert just because I like the matchup is, it's crazy to say, but Tyler Conklin.
Yeah.
And that's, just against the Broncos. The Broncos are a plus matchup. But if you don't have that option, you have Goedert. You're rolling Goedert. Like we said, don't really hate it, but it's been kind of rough, and it's a new offensive coordinator, so he might just not have Dallas Goedert in the plans as an option like they had him last year.
Yeah.
It's not Shane Steichen there anymore.
Yeah, 100%. And, the Rams have a solid defense. They're 7th against the pass, 15th against the rush. The Eagles have so many weapons in the passing game. I can see them still having success there, but it is worth noting that the Rams have been pretty dominant against the pass. The rush being 15th, I'm looking at DeAndre Swift and kind of licking my lips a little bit. He's going to have another solid week. He's clear and beyond the running back one there. He's getting the volume. And I mean, if he's getting another 15, 20 carries this game, you can expect 15 or so fantasy points on the low end, I would say. For the Rams side of the ball, the Eagles are kind of the polar opposite. They have not been very good against the pass. They're 27th, but they are 2nd against the rush. We saw Kyren Williams kind of get bottled up a little bit against the Bengals. He got targets through the air, didn't do too much with them. So that is a possibility. That Eagles defensive line is possibly the most dominant in the NFL. They just have big name after big name. But with the return of Cooper Kupp, we can possibly see that explosion that we've been waiting for from Matt Stafford. We have quarterbacks on the bye week. We have quarterbacks that we haven't loved the matchup this week, a Trevor Lawrence, a Joe Burrow, until he shows us something, kind of the same case for both of them. The Matt Stafford start this week, even though it's against the Eagles with Cooper Kupp coming back, I don't hate it. There's, we have other ones that we've, talked about before. Guys like Josh Dobbs, just go because they're going against the Bengals. We've talked about Sam Howell, but that game's already passed. But Stafford, I mean, I don't hate his matchup this week. I think Kyren Williams could possibly struggle just because of that run defense. But again, if he's getting targets through the air, that's where he can hold his PPR value. And then that receiver room, I mean, everyone takes a hit, obviously. Cooper Kupp is going to be the number one there. How many snaps he plays, I'm not 100% sure. If he's going to be out there, the entire game, or if he's going to be on account. That's something worth monitoring if we get an update before the game. Puka Nacua, I still like starting him this week, absolutely. Tutu Atwell's the guy that probably takes the biggest hit because of this. But when the Rams run 3 receiver sets, I would be surprised to see Van Jefferson out there at this point over a Tutu Atwell. Van Jefferson did not take advantage of Cooper being gone. And I mean, when you get out-targeted, when Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell just take over your wide receiver room, Van Jefferson, I mean, so we'll see about that. I think Tutu takes the biggest hit. I don't know. I liked his start without Cooper Kupp. I don't know how you feel about it. I am a lot more hesitant with Cooper Kupp in.
I mean, I think I feel relatively the same. I think they run Tutu a lot out of the slot, and that happens to be where Cooper Kupp performs his best, is out of the slot. So, I mean, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things shake up. Definitely watching the snap percentages in this one.
Yeah, and then takes us to the tight end. Another one that I like more than a Dallas Goedert this week, if he's available, is Tyler Higbee. The Eagles linebackers have not done well against the tight end. We keep talking about before this season, we were not sold on Tyler Higbee. But then, the Rams throw a bunch of money his way, so obviously they are, and they see him being a part of that offense, and his targets have gone up, his receptions has gone up, and for the tight end position, if you're getting 4 or 5 catches with red zone targets, you just can't ask for more from our lower end tight ends at this point.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. I think Higbee's a good start this week. The Eagles have been perpetually bad against tight ends this year. Aside with, the one game against K. Dotton. But, yeah, it's a start I like this week. Not too much else for that game.
Yeah, I think we're good to move on to the next.
With that, the Bengals are going to go into Arizona, take on the Cardinals. Both of these teams are 1-3. The line's set at 44.5 points. Cincinnati's favored by 3. So it should be, a decently high-scoring game. Neither one of these defenses has really shown too much. The Bengals are giving up 23.5 points per game, 157 rush yards per game. That right there is the number that I'm looking at, because to me, it's going to be a very big week for number 1, James Conner, and number 2, Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs, I think, is second. No. He's 4th right now in rushing among quarterbacks, and behind the likes of Lamar Jackson, Daniel Jones, and obviously Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been running the ball well. He's had more than 20 yards the last 3 games. He's been passing the ball fairly well. And the Bengals are giving up 207 pass yards per game on defense, which, to me, this says for the Cardinals, I like James Conner. I love Hollywood Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Dobbs is a great start this week. Zach Ertz. Obviously, Zach Ertz has shown that he's one of the more solid tight end options. And honestly, I like Michael Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to start Michael Wilson, I mean, the Bengals defense has not shown too much against the pass. They had one really stout game on defense. And aside from that, they gave up 27 points to the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
And the Titans haven't been anything on offense. So it's very concerning. On the offensive side of the ball, the Bengals are only averaging 12.2 points per game, which is absolutely insane to think about coming off of the last 2 years that they've had, going to back-to-back AFC championships. One of the years they went to the Super Bowl. We know that Joe Burrow has been hobbled, but he's now off the injury report. So I don't know what exactly the deal is with that. If he's able to return to the Joe Burrow that we knew and be mobile enough to, create plays, give his wide receivers time to get open, then we might see a good game out of him. If it's going to be, a lot of this quick hitting close to the line of scrimmage stuff that we've seen for the past 4 weeks, you're going to get another bad Joe Burrow game. And like we said earlier in the injury report, T. Higgins is going to miss this one. Even with that, I really don't like the Tyler Boyd start that much. And as crazy as it sounds, last year he really did not give you that much. Before last year, anytime T or Jahmyr was out, Tyler Boyd was coming in and doing great. Last year, he didn't really give you that much when Jahmyr missed all that time. And right now, Arizona's giving up close to 3 fewer fantasy points per game to receive, to each receiver, than the league average. So that right there, it's like, okay, we're already dealing with, they're kind of a little bit higher than average, a little bit better than your average week. And on top of that, Joe Burrow hasn't been looking good.
Mm-hmm.
The Tyler Boyd, it's just, it feels like kind of a forced start just because you want what you got in the past from him. But hell, we haven't got what we wanted from T. Higgins or Ja'Marr Chase. So what's Tyler Boyd going to do? I just don't really like it, honestly. If it is an option, and if it's the option that you are kind of locked into, then sure. But honestly, I'd prefer guys like Allen Lazard. I'd honestly prefer Michael Wilson. I'd maybe even Josh Downs against that Tennessee secondary. So it's just something that I'd be mindful of because Tyler Boyd hasn't really given you, even the game, T. Higgins missed a decent portion of that last game. And
yeah,
he's not giving you much.
No, and
I only must start. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Finish. Sorry.
The only must starts on that side of the ball for me are Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase. And I say Joe Mixon because, like the Bengals or the Bengals defense, the Cardinals defense is also in the lower third against the run. They're giving up 132 rush yards per game. Given the fact T. Higgins is going to miss, I think you're due for pretty decent, if not a blow up Joe Mixon week.
Yeah, and we're still waiting for that Bengals O-line that they paid all that money for to they bring in all these new pieces, known faces that are expected to succeed, and they haven't to this point. As a Joe Burrow fantasy owner, you're probably, if you have started him every week, you are probably 1-3 or 0-4, unless you have had monster weeks. If you have a Mostert, a Keenan Allen, guys like that may have just backpacked you to a couple wins. This week, and I promised I would not start Joe Burrow this week, and I am not starting Joe Burrow. I'm going to roll the dice with Josh Dobbs. We talked about his rushing upside, and speaking to Joe Burrow owners, we can't wait another week to see if Joe Burrow is going to be back to prime form. He's missing T. Higgins. If he gives me 20-something points this week, I'll start him next week. But I'm not going to roll Joe Burrow again and have him give me another single-digit week. Because at some point, if you're 1-3, 0-4, you don't want to be 1-4 or 0-5. You have to bite the bullet, and Josh Dobbs has played consistent. And I like the matchup against this Bengals defense. We saw they made Tannehill look, and at this point, Josh Dobbs looks a lot more capable than Ryan Tannehill. So, I mean, that's really all I had on that. I just wanted to note I did promise I wouldn't start him this week, and I'm not going to.
Yeah, and I mean, it's pretty obvious Joe Burrow is going to have to ride the pine until he shows that he's capable of giving you a valuable week. On to the Cardinals side of the ball, the defense is giving up 25 points per game. They're 25th right now in that regard. 242.5 pass yards per game. So that kind of gives you a little bit of hope that if there were a week for Joe Burrow to bounce back, it would be this week again. It's not somebody that I'm hoping for that rebound to happen in my starting position. It's like, if you go off on my bench, great, I can start you from now on. And they play the Seahawks next week. So, as far as everything, Hollywood is a guy that's kind of nearing, depending if you play 2-3 wide receiver, how many flexes you have, kind of nearing a must start, like wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 category. Just Josh Dobbs has been getting him the ball. He's the number one guy there. And Zach Ertz, like I said, and Michael Wilson. Other than that, Rondale Moore, I'm more or less paying attention to him than even rostering him, because he's more of that gadget guy that, he'll do the end arounds and the runs and stuff, and he's a big play guy, but Michael Wilson is seeming to be the number 2 wide receiver in that offense, and he's the guy I'm more interested in moving forward. That's really all I have for that game, and unless you have anything else, and move right along to the next one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you covered it well. You have Hollywood, James Conner are 2 must-starts. Michael Wilson, especially with these injuries coming in kind of late notice, Amon Ra missing, the options are kind of dwindling. So if you are going to start a Michael Wilson this week, I actually like rolling the dice on that. The hot hand, a guy who just had 2 touchdowns. We touched on Zach Ertz. I'll roll into the next game. I'm going to cover this next one. Schiff is then going to go back-to-back because he has the Sunday night game, and then I'll finish it with the Monday. That takes us to the New York Jets traveling to Denver to play the Broncos. This one's a really interesting game because we just saw one of the best games we've probably ever seen from Zach Wilson against the defending champs, and now they are playing one of the worst, if not the worst, defense in the NFL right now, who just got rid of Randy Gregory. I don't know why, but they did after they just paid him. The Jets coming into this week, the Broncos defense is 30th against the pass, 32nd against the rush. They did say Breece Hall will no longer be on whatever snap count we've seen. They are letting him loose. And I would, in your fantasy lineup this week, against the worst rush defense in the NFL, I think this could be the week Breece Hall breaks out. I feel safe starting him this week. And I expect that gap between him and Dalvin to increase even more. Dalvin just has not looked very explosive. I mean, the Jets' run game as a whole hasn't, but Breece Hall is going to be the guy that does, kind of explode if someone's going to. I like his start this week. I like Garrett Wilson this week. If you're telling me you want to roll the dice on Lazard, I like him only because he's the wide receiver too, but he is heavily dependent on how good Zach Wilson decides to play. Garrett Wilson is going to get his volume no matter what. If Zach Wilson shows up, then Lazard could show up as well. Zach Wilson's I don't like starting him this week. This is like the week to start him if you were going to. I just don't because it's Zach Wilson, and I think there's other options out there. But if you're in a super deep league, I wouldn't absolutely hate you for it. But again, I don't think I'm starting Zach Wilson. Tyler Conklin, on the other hand, I do like his matchup. I know Schiff likes that matchup as well. I think we could see a very solid week from Tyler Conklin. I mean, the Jets defense hasn't been too good either. I was going to say I possibly like this Jets defense this week, but no, I don't think I do. I mean, do you have any comments on the Jets side of the ball?
Nah, just Dalvin Cook's pretty much just a handcuff at this point.
Yeah.
Not really. If you want to roster him, go ahead. If not, let someone else.
Yeah. And then
he's got more value if you are a Breece Hall owner than any other situation.
Yeah. The over-under on this game's 43.5. The Broncos are 2.5-point favorites, but again, that really means the Jets are a half-point favorite. On the Broncos side of the ball, the Jets' defense hasn't been very good against the rush either. They're 28th, 16th against the pass. The rushing side is weird because Javonte, we don't know if he's going to play, and if he does play, in what capacity. If he does play, I don't even like the Javonte start because he just hasn't gotten double digits. The Broncos' success running the ball as a whole hasn't completely been there. With how Jaleel McLaughlin looked this past week, even if Javonte does, I assume he's not going to be 100%, and I could see him stealing into that snap share. If Javonte doesn't play, depending how your running backs look, Jaleel McLaughlin could be a sneaky play. It's a risky play, but I do like it because sometimes you got to risk it to win. And I could...
Yeah, I mean, we just saw Pacheco blow up against that run defense, so...
Yeah.
It's possible to run on them for sure.
Yeah, and then, I mean, when you talk about the pass catchers, or to mention Samaje Perine, I'm going to say his name and that's it because he's not worth saying anything else about at this point. For the passing side of the ball, Russell Wilson, this could be a favorable week, especially if a Javonte does miss and they're having to rely on a bit more passing. And his pass catchers, we have Courtland Sutton, we have Jerry Jeudy, we have Marvin Mims. Courtland Sutton has been super touchdown dependent. I don't even know who Sauce would kind of shadow. I would almost assume it would be Jeudy over Sutton. I think he's a bigger threat on the field, but we'll have to wait and see. I don't hate either of their starts this week, Sutton or Jeudy, just because of how thin the wide receiver room has gotten this week, especially with the injuries coming out. So, I mean, if you're rolling either of those, I like it. How many are they going to get you? I mean, we're going to have to wait and see, but I think it's a safe play if you're thin at the receiver to play Sutton, to play Jeudy this week. I wouldn't play Marvin Mims. He's super dependent on the deep ball at this point, and I don't know. If he hits it, then he has a great week. If he doesn't, he's finishing with 2 catches, 15 yards. Tight ends aren't really worth mentioning in Denver. They don't target them too much. Adam Troutman's the guy there, and I mean, I'm sure a lot of you didn't even know Adam Troutman was the guy there because he doesn't really get used.
No, yeah, I mean, they were using a fullback, I think, and yeah, as long as Dulcich is out, not interested in that tight end room at all.
Yeah.
Not really too much to add on that game at all, really. I think with that, we'll just take it into our next one. We got the Chiefs heading to Minnesota. Chiefs are 3-1. Vikings are 1-3. The over/under in this game is 53 points. It should be a fairly high-scoring affair. Chiefs are favored by 3.5. And it's funny, we're seeing the Chiefs' defense be a lot better than we're used to. They're only giving up 15 points per game right now, 190.5 passing yards per game, 104 rush yards per game, making that 294.5 total yards per game. They're ranking in the only one that they're not top 10 in is the rush yards per game. Otherwise, they're top 10 in every category. It's going to be a tough game for the Vikings, in my opinion. It does not mean that I'm not starting. If anything, I might be a little more hesitant on Kirk Cousins this week. But, chances are you're still rolling him.
Yeah.
Alexander Mattison is one that I'm pretty iffy on just because, we're seeing them start to work Cam Akers in. We don't know how that's going to continue to go. And the Chiefs are, still 13th against the run. And Mattison hasn't really shown us too much against decent run defenses. Let alone, he's had good weeks against awful ones, but that's something you go to expect unless you're Josh Kelly. And that Chiefs offense is still top 10 in every category, despite not really having any fantasy options.
Mm-hmm.
You're starting Mahomes, that. You're starting Pacheco. That should be obvious at this point. He's a high-end RB2. Getting himself into RB1 category, like the way that they're running, they can't do too much else besides throw the ball to Travis Kelce and run the ball. We know what they do. Everybody knows what they do, and I think it might not be as effective as they want it to be. You're starting to see some of it. It just looks a little more stagnant without Bieniemy there. Maybe the creativity is just, I don't know. Some of the basic stuff you're used to seeing the Chiefs seeing, you're not seeing. Rashee Rice, I guess, is a guy that you can roster.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Kadarius Toney. On any given week, I'm not too excited about starting either one of them until they separate themselves from the rest of that room. And as much as what I'm seeing so far is that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like maybe if you need a spot start this week, just due to the fact that the line's at 53 points, there's going to be a lot of points scored. If you want to use Rashee, Kadarius as a spot start, I'm not totally against it, but like I said, I feel there's better options, ones that are just going to get a little more volume at the very least. These guys are the definition of touchdown and big play dependent. Other than that, they're probably not going to see more than 3 or 4 targets each. Travis Kelce's the only solid option in that pass game. Then there's really not too. If you have Butker, that's a great kicker to have, but I don't know if I'd necessarily start the Chiefs defense this week. The Vikings are very capable of putting up points. They are currently averaging 287 pass yards per game. We know Kirk likes to chuck the ball. It's kind of one of those things where an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, because you have the Chiefs passing defense, which is 8th in the league, and you have the Vikings passing offense, which is 3rd in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So something's got to give here. I'm thinking it's going to be the Chiefs' pass defense. We saw Zach Wilson have some success down the field. I do believe that Kirk Cousins is a bit more talented as a quarterback. I think that Justin Jefferson, you don't even have to ever ask yourself whether or not you're starting Jefferson. The question that you do, however, have to ask is about Jordan Addison. Mm-hmm. He gave a big disappearing act last week after giving you some pretty solid performances in the first 3 weeks. At this point, this is a game that I guess I do like starting him because you have the high over-under. You've got the Vikings. They like to pass the ball. They're going to be in a position where they have to pass the ball. And I think he's a good option. It was very discouraging seeing him give you a goose egg last week, but he's one guy that I think you have to keep kicking the tires with. I think as the season goes on, he'll only get better. And along with him, KJ Osborne. If another guy that I don't hate for the spot start, that these guys are capable of burning you, though. So you just have to realize if you're putting them in and you don't get that touchdown, expect to look back with some regret.
Yeah.
That's just the way that fantasy football goes. But at least you're putting yourself in a position where it's a guy in a game that a lot of points are projected to be scored. He's on a team that passes the ball a lot. You at least give yourself an opportunity to score some extra points. And, other than that, the Vikings defense is very middling, giving up 23.8 points per game, 233.5 pass yards per game, 111 rush yards per game. To me, Isaiah Pacheco should have no issue eating against this defense. And that's really all. I mean, on the Chiefs, you got Mahomes, you got Kelsey, and Pacheco. If you are desperate and need a spot start, I guess Kadarius Toney and Rashee Rice. Sky Moore, I get you can't say much other than he's in the same category as the rest of these guys. For that matter, you could throw Marquez Valdez-Scantling up there. They all get 1 or 2 deep targets per game. It only matters whether or not they catch it and if they convert that for a touchdown. So you're throwing up a prayer. On the Vikings side of the ball, TJ Hawkinson, there's really not much to talk about. You're starting him.
Yep.
Kirk Cousins, I like to start this week.
Mm-hmm.
It could be rough against the Chiefs' pass defense, but I do think that he gets it done. Justin Jefferson's very obvious. And Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne, 2 more spot starts like the ones on the Chiefs. You're going to need a touchdown. You're going to need that big play. Otherwise, you're probably going to end up burned.
Yeah.
And then Madison, we know what we're getting. And we're just keeping an eye on Cam Akers. If you have no other choice, you're starting Madison. That's all I got for this one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I don't even have too many comments. The one comment being, out of any of those spot starts, I like Jordan Addison the most. But compared to Osborne, Rashee Rice, Kadarius Toney, I like Addison more than them. I like Rashee Rice the most on the Chiefs, but I still don't. I don't like starting him, but I like him the most.
It's scarier than Like, I'd prefer starting Michael Wilson this week over starting Rashee Rice, just because it's a lot more consolidated in Arizona as compared to, we know they'll throw to absolutely anybody you throw a jersey on in Kansas City.
Noah Gray.
Noah Gray got that. That's what I mean. Noah Gray got that 34-yard touchdown. That was his only catch last week.
Yep.
That's how it goes with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And with that, moving on to what is likely the game of the week, you have the Cowboys going into Santa Clara and taking on the 49ers. Cowboys are 3-1, Niners are 4-0. Over-under in this game is 45, and the Niners are favored by 3.5 points. It's going to be a battle.
Yeah.
Both of these teams have pretty good offenses, both in the top 5 as far as points per game goes. Cowboys are scoring 31 points per game, Niners are scoring 31.2. And each of the defenses, the Niners are only giving up 14.5, and the Cowboys are giving up 10.2. This is the ultimate version of unstoppable force meets immovable object. And we just got to see in this one. In my opinion, you have your guys that, you got CD, Tony Pollard. Dak is a guy that I struggle with. I'm still saying I'm not starting him this week.
No.
I'm still not starting Dak this week. Even Purdy, I'm a bit more nervous on. Purdy's been solid, but I'm still I'm shying away from that one. The biggest reason I have to say is because right now the Cowboys are giving up 111.8 rush yards per game, putting them at 17th, so damn near exactly in the middle of the pack. That's not going to cut it against the San Francisco 49ers and Christian McCaffrey. To me, this is going to be a big McCaffrey week. I still think that you can get some good production out of Debo and Ayuk. It's not going to be big blow-up weeks for them unless they happen to, break for a 50-yard touchdown, something of that matter. Ayuk, I think I like more than Debo as the season's going on. Ayuk looks like a number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah.
The passes that he's catching over the middle and on the sideline, he looks great. But both of those guys, obviously, you're rolling every week. You don't really have much of a choice but to start Debo if you got him. George Kittle, and it sucks because he is always going to be on the field, but they could not pass to him one time a game and still win by 21 points. George Kittle's just that good of a blocker, and they don't necessarily need him as a weapon all the time. When they do, he might have some big games, but he's just he's become one of the more questionable options on a week-to-week basis from a guy that used to be, unquestionable top 3 tight end. You're still starting him. You don't have much of a choice but to. But it makes me nervous. It genuinely does. And one of the guys that I really like, especially with the news that Peyton Hendershot's going to be out, is Jake Ferguson on the Cowboys.
Oh, yeah.
This is, like we talk about every week, a tight end wasteland. And this is a guy, last week, he got 7 targets, 7 catches, 77 yards. My God, for a tight end, that is
beautiful.
Heaven. You can't ask for too much more than that. So I'm rolling him out with confidence this week. Probably more confidence than George Kittle, just because he's showing that, and we know that Dak Prescott does like to throw to his tight ends. And the more rapport that he's developing, this is his 2nd year in the league, right?
Yes.
Jake Ferguson was drafted last year.
Yes.
This is his 2nd year with Dak, so I think he'll have a good game. Like I said, CeeDee's the obvious start. Tony's the obvious start. You're not starting Dak. I'd much rather start Michael Gallup over Brandon Cooks at this point.
Agree.
Brandon Cooks is almost at the level of droppable, depending on what kind of format you're in. If it's much deeper, he might be a guy you want to hold on to just in case. Should CeeDee go down? Should Michael Gallup go down? We know that he is a very skilled receiver, but right now he's just the number 3 in that offense, so it's not worth too much. And that's really all on the Cowboys side of the ball. Either one of these kickers you're starting, but you already knew that. And like I said, I think as far as this game goes with the Niners, it's going to be a huge Christian McCaffrey game. Yeah. You don't have Elijah Mitchell in this one. There are other backups, Jordan Mason. McCaffrey's going to be on the field often and getting the ball often. That's really how I see this game going. I don't think they're going to put Brock Purdy in too many situations where he has to necessarily go out and win this game for them. They're going to run the ball down the Cowboys' throats.
Yeah, and I'd 100% agree with that. I think what's weird is when you look at this game fantasy-wise, you have 2 very high-powered defenses. The difference is, and honestly I'm going to say at this point, Brock Purdy in his system is functioning just as good, if not better, than Dak in his system. You're looking at who is surrounding these guys, and the Niners have probably the best offense outside of the quarterback, like just weapons. They probably have the best weapons in the league. When we're sitting here talking about they don't need George Kittle to win games, that's how you know that you're just overloaded. McCaffrey's going to go crazy. Debo and Ayuk, you have to start. Kittle, oh, it's scary with him.
Last week, it's just crazy because this offense doesn't need to. They had Debo out there running as a decoy last week. And still won. Granted, they played the Cardinals, but the Cardinals beat the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And they still won by double digits. It's like the Niners are probably the best team in the NFL right now.
Yeah, 100% agree. And something I wanted to touch on, because Schiff may have to make the pivot to it this week, is if you are super riddled with injuries and you're looking at your lineup and you're saying, dang, like I'm probably going to lose this week, a super Hail Mary play to make, go ahead, tell him.
So I had at first, because I have the Cowboys defense, and I'm like, I don't want to play them against the Niners. The Niners are 3rd in scoring right now, but so I pivoted to to the Dolphins. And then it's like, I drafted this defense for a reason. Give me the sacks. Give me the opportunity. Just give me the opportunity. You have the Cowboys defense. You're rolling them every week just for that fact that they're sack merchants. They're turnover merchants. They're guys that go out there. They're ball hawks. They go for the interceptions, all that. That's why you see them getting these pick sixes on, multiple weeks now.
Yeah.
So it's just they offer an upside that most defenses do not. their aggression and their like ferocity, their like willingness to go after the ball on every single play, that just offers you more than a lot of defenses will. Like, for example, the Niners defense is a great defense. For fantasy purposes, not so much. They're more focused on, we are going to stop you. Don't necessarily care if we get the turnovers and all that. They're not the same type of defense as the Cowboys. And yeah, that's really all for that one.
Yeah. No, I mean, for a Hail Mary play, the Cowboys are a team that they could give up 28, 31 points to the Niners, and if their defense explodes with the fantasy plays, they could still finish double digits, even giving up, 28, 30 points. So, something I wanted to note, worth bringing up, the Cowboys defense, if you really need it this week, I mean, you just never know. Their upside is the highest.
Guys, I did say that I went away from the Dolphins defense. I don't recommend doing necessarily what I did. If you have the opportunity to start the Dolphins defense against a team that just gave up 11 sacks, I would go for it. I personally made that move because Jahmyr Gibbs was out and he was my running back too, so I had to pick up a running back, so I had to drop the Dolphins defense. I'm not suggesting that you move on from the Dolphins defense this week. I just want to make that a note.
Yeah, we're noting if your team is so hobbled and injured this week and you're looking at your lineup and you're saying 90% chance I'm going to lose this week, the Cowboys have a crazy high upside that possibly could play out in your favor. That's all we're saying. That'll take us to our final game of the week, Monday night. The Green Bay Packers to come to Las Vegas to play the Raiders, who are 2-point favorites, so really the Packers are favored in this one. The over-under is 44.5. Both these teams have been solid against the pass. It's kind of surprising seeing the Raiders ranked 13th against the pass. Doesn't feel right, especially having watched their games, but it is what it is. The Packers are ranked 11th. Both of them are pretty horrendous against the run. Packers are 30th. Raiders are 26th. To start on the Green Bay side of the ball, Jordan Love is a must start. I don't care if the Raiders are 13th against the pass. Jordan Love has rushing capability. They just gave up 2 rushing touchdowns to Justin Herbert. Jordan Love very well can do the same thing here. Aaron Jones is still questionable with his hamstring injury. We don't know if he's going to play again, as Schiff mentioned earlier. Stay tuned on our Instagram and our Twitter for updates on that. If Aaron Jones does play, I like the Aaron Jones start. If he does not play, I do not like the A.J. Dillon start. He is a Joshua Kelly player where even when he's getting all the workload, I don't care if it's against a terrible Raiders run defense. A.J. Dillon just has not looked explosive. I would not start him either way. Through the passing game, I like Christian Watson. I like Romeo Doubs. I'm starting both of them without hesitation. If you're thin at receiver and you want the play, I like Jaden Reed. I don't hate him at all. He has been a red zone target for the Packers, and I think he can be someone that continues to get used in that capacity. So I don't hate Jaden Reed at all. I am not starting the tight end. Luke Musgrave, if he plays, then I'm thinking about it. But
I think there's better options this week, especially coming off of a concussion. It's not.
Yeah. And I mean, his backup, Josiah DeGuara, we saw him get some volume when Luke Musgrave went out with that concussion. So, I mean, if he misses and it's DeGuara, I don't really like that play either. The Raiders side of the ball is super easy to talk about, as always. I'm starting Josh Jacobs. Davante Adams, if he plays, it is against the Packers. No matter what, if Davante Adams plays, you're playing him. And Jacoby Myers, if Jimmy G plays, I am playing him. That's it. Literally, that's it. There's Daniel. What's crazy is Daniel Carlson is doing horrendous fantasy-wise because the Raiders' offense has just...
Well, the Raiders are scoring 15.5 points a game.
Yeah, with Jimmy G at the helm. Yeah, they have not been scoring the ball very well. Daniel Carlson, even at this point, is a guy I'm not rostering. I'm dropping him. Yeah, there's just better kickers out there. We talk about, We talk about the Cowboys, the Niners. They roll out these rookie kickers, and they're top 5 in the league. And there's just more high-powered offense. There's better matchups. If you want to streamline kickers because there's not that great of ones available and you're going off matchup, at this point, and it's sad to say because Daniel Carlson's a great kicker, but I'm doing that. Just because the Raiders offense hasn't shown me that they can put up 20-plus points a game and even have them be worth rostering. I mean, they had a chance to kick a 50-plus yard field goal. I think it was somewhere around 55 yards. Totally in Carlson's range, and they don't kick it.
Justin Tucker's not that good of an option for a kicker this year. Realistically, what you have to do to get a kicker, you go and you look at the teams that are scoring the most points, and you grab their kicker. It's so simple, yet people stick to the name recognition a lot more than the actual value of the kicker. And it doesn't make sense. It's like, why would I want a kicker on a team that can't score 20 points in a damn game? You don't.
No.
It doesn't matter how good they are. It does not matter how accurate they are. If they kick one 50-yard field goal in the game and that's all the points they score, and if they don't get an opportunity, hell, if the team's down and has to go for 2 twice and they don't even kick, like, you got to think about this stuff. It really doesn't matter how, like, mostly saying that because Justin Tucker and Daniel Carlson are
they're probably the best 2 in the league.
Killing teams, but they've been killing fantasy teams because people like, look, you just got to let it go.
Yeah, it is what it is. But I mean, that's all I had for the Monday night game. If you had something to add, if not, I mean, we're ready to wrap.
Not really. I mean, if Aaron Jones does play, obviously you're rolling him. It should be a good game for him.
Yeah.
And yeah, other than that, that's it.
I mean, it's a simple
on that game.
Yeah.
It's a very simple game. Just don't overthink it. But I don't know, guys. It'll be interesting. We've seen already this week the Bears beat the Commanders by 20 points. So, hell, I have no idea what's going to happen the rest of this week. It should be an interesting one. But you guys already know. We'll see you again on Monday. If you have any questions about your rosters, any possible trades you might want to make, we're always here for you on any platform. So just give us a holler.
Yeah. Wait till next episode. Take more reps with the first team. Till then.